Welcome to the Jazz Notes Podcast. I'm Ben Anderson.
I'm Chandler Holt.
We might sound a little different today. We are recording in a different studio. Ideally, everything's fine, but because we're recording in a different studio, there is no video. We also don't have mic covers, so we might get a little poppy. So if our P's are popping, that's why we're in a different studio. But I appreciate everybody tuning in. As always, we are recording this on August 25th. We are fully in the dead season of the NBA. 2 days from now, Eurobasket will kick off. We will talk about that more coming up next week, though we'll tell you what games you can watch this week. And get to some quick weekly news before we answer your mailbag questions, which we actually got quite a few, so that'll make for some time, so this shouldn't be too abbreviated of a podcast for you. But as always, we appreciate you following us on X, Twitter, Blue Sky, Threads, wherever, at Ben's Hoops and at C Holt Sports, and of course reading us at KSLSports.com. All right, weekly news.
Yes, like you said, just one small bit of weekly news. Oscar Tshiebwe, he signed his two-way deal. John Tonji remains unsigned. And we have a question about this in the mailbag. The Jazz may be opening a roster spot, but Oscar Tshiebwe is back with the Jazz.
And good for Oscar. There was some reports that he was going to sign overseas, and then maybe there was issues with preferring somebody else or medical issues that I've never heard any medical issues with Oscar. In fact, he's kind of an Iron Man, right? He'd play 3 games in 48 hours, so I don't think that's something you necessarily have to be concerned with him, and I'm sure the Jazz are thrilled to have Oscar back.
Yes.
There are a lot of different ways to use your two-way contracts. A lot of teams have different approaches. If you're a veteran team or a championship team, having two-way guys that are actually kind of your young players and going out there and maybe an opportunity to make the team in the future with kind of specific archetypes like 3-and-D guys has value. For the Jazz, they have so many young players on their rosters already, guys that they've drafted in the first round or early in the second. They don't need their two-way guys to be like, who's the young guy that's going to make the league? It's like, they've drafted 10 of those guys, so they don't need that necessarily. So they can use it more for guys like Oscar who are going to make everyone else's life easy on the Stars. Yeah. And whichever young player from the Jazz this year is with the Stars is going to benefit from Oscar rebounding the ball 30 times, so you get all those extra possessions.
Do the Jazz have any more two-way deals?
They do. They have one more open. So
okay.
They have Elijah Harkless on one. They have now Oscar on the other, and they have a third open.
Okay.
So it would make sense that they would sign John Tonji to that, but teams don't end up – maybe the Jazz are waiting to see if somebody else wants to sign to that deal that they like, or they open up a roster spot, which we'll talk about coming up if that happens, and they could sign John Tonji to just a normal deal or a non-guarantee deal.
Yes.
They could sign John Tonji to a deal that's only partially guaranteed and won't become fully guaranteed until January, and if they don't like him, they can get rid of him. And I wonder, I don't think that would be cheaper, but there are lots of different options there, and some of that is like worked out when you draft somebody. Like, hey, this is what we're going to do, and this is how we're going to treat you. Though when I'd kind of talk to people about what to do with John Tonji and how they were going to sign him, they seemed a little mixed on, like, they didn't actually know, like, what the plan was. It doesn't mean they didn't know what their options were. They just maybe didn't know, like, exactly what it was going to look like.
Yes.
So they were keeping their options open.
As you mentioned to start, Eurobasket begins this week on Wednesday. On Wednesday to open is Finland and Larry Markkanen versus Sweden. And then on Thursday, there is Bosnia and Herzegovina versus Cyprus. And that is...
The Bosnian Beast.
Yusuf Nurkic. And then on Thursday, Italy versus Greece.
And that's Gabriel Procida, who we also got a question about, so we can talk about that a little bit then. But, not a ton there for the Jazz, other than watching Lowry. And Lowry was maybe the best player in Eurobasket during warm-ups. Now he was playing Belgium and Poland, neither of whom I think are in. Maybe they are. They're not in any of these groups that they're going to see. So, we'll see what happens. Lowry gets to play in Finland in front of his home fans, and that's very exciting for him. I think it's the third time he's done it. He made his professional debut at Eurobasket 8 years ago, I think, and he's talked about what a cool experience that was for him. So it means a lot, and I'd expect him to continue to play well. Of course, what you're looking for is injuries. Dante Exum notoriously got hurt in international play, and it kind of derailed his career. That was his first major injury. He tore up his knee, and we'll have a question about that, so we'll talk about that as well. But that's, I guess, what you're concerned about, and you're really only concerned with Lowry.
Yes.
If something were to happen with Yusuf Nurkic, okay. With all due respect to Nurk, you don't want him to get hurt, but as we talked about last week, like, there's a real chance this is just the last year of his NBA career anyways. So if he got hurt or something happened, like, it just might be the end of his career.
Yeah.
At least in the U.S. I wouldn't be surprised if he goes and plays overseas over the next few years. But that's coming up It's hard to watch these games, is the truth. It's on Courtside 1891 or something. I can't remember what this app is called. Or some of the games will be available on YouTube. And even the Courtside app, which is free, you have to get the premium to watch all the games. So it's not going to be ideal if you're in the U.S.
Yes.
And they play at weird times. Like Lowry's games usually being played at like 9 in the morning, 10 in the morning. So it's not super available to you.
If you were looking to keep up with his games, I would suggest just like highlight videos on YouTube. Even if they don't have the full game, there would definitely be at least from the NBA players, like top performances. And then also next week when we record again, we will make sure to talk about these games for you, give you recaps on what happened, how the Jazz players did, etc.
And we'll have write-ups about them at KSLSports.com, so you will be able to understand what happened and how everybody performed. And that's probably the best way to keep up with it, other than, the spot games that will be on FIBA's YouTube channel.
Yeah.
So, anyways, that's what's coming up this week. And those are just their first games. Again, Lowry Wednesday, Nurkic and Procida coming up on Thursday, and then there will be even more.
All right. One more little segment in the first half, and then we will get to your mailbag. We did this last year before the season, sort of around the same time period when there's not a lot to talk about. I have some Jazz over-unders for you.
Okay.
So I'm going to give you a stat or something along those lines, and then you tell me if you think it's going to be over or under. Pretty simple.
Great.
Starting with Taylor Hendricks, throughout the season, do you think he'll be over or under 17.5 minutes a game?
Over.
Over.
Yeah, he'll be over. I'm more curious about games played.
Yeah.
Is it like 65 would be over under for that? It would be huge for him to be over. Again, it's just so easy to forget that he played 40 games his first year in the NBA and then played 3. Like, he is so young.
Mm-hmm.
He has played so many fewer games than even Isaiah Collier or Bryce Sensabaugh or Kyle Filipowski or who else did you? Cody Williams. Like, he's just not played enough. He's not played very much at all. So it's just. And then he's coming back from the injury. He's going to be raw. Yes. But I think he'll get 17 minutes a game. I think the Jazz, even though they slow play him early, I think he'll be up over 20 by the end of the year.
Okay. Yeah, small sample size, but in the 3 games last year, he was at 25 minutes a game.
Yeah.
So,
I think
and that even counts with him going out in the first quarter.
Again, I think Lowry, right. I mean, I think Taylor is, outside of Ace, is probably, one of the best prospects, if not the best prospect the Jazz have pre-injury.
Yep.
And I think they were most excited about him last year. Before he got hurt, unfortunately.
All right, next one. We have a couple of points per game ones.
Okay.
Starting with Keontae George. Over-under for him, 18.5 points. Last year he was at 16.8, and that was up from his rookie year.
And the Jazz lost a lot of scoring.
Yes.
They lost Colin Sexton. They lost John Collins, who was tied with Lowry for the leading score at 19.9 points per game. So there's going to be buckets to be had. I don't think he gets over 18.5.
Okay.
I think he's like right there at 18.
Okay.
I think that's right about where he is, which is good. That's a good number for him. If he's up over 18.5, his shooting numbers have probably improved.
Mm-hmm.
I can't imagine he's scoring 20 points a game while shooting 39% from the floor. Like that would be a real recipe for disaster for the Jazz.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think he's going to jump up to like 45% from the floor. So I think he's still low 40s, mid 30s with threes, and then he's averaging 18 points a game.
Okay. Next up, another player who we're expecting to take a jump this year, at least compared to last year, Lauri Markkanen, 22.5 points per game. For context, he was at 19 flat last year.
I'll take the over for Lowry.
Yeah.
I think he gets back over. I think he's going to play a lot. I think he's going to score a lot. I think he's going to come in shape. Not that he was out of shape last year, but I think he recognized the goal of last season was goofy.
Yep.
And I think that will change a little bit this year.
Yeah, I agree. All right, kind of a interesting one, but I'll explain it for you. Ace Bailey, will he be 2.5 on the Rookie of the Year ladder? So over would be, will he be win Rookie of the Year or be second, and under would be 3 or lower?
I'm going to say under.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think Cooper's going to be the best rookie all year, and then I would bet on the field over betting on Ace.
Okay.
Now, I could be totally wrong. Again, the league just might be designed for Ace.
Yeah.
You know, it's easy. We had a question last week about, like, which hype video should you watch to get excited for the Jazz season? And so I just honestly, because I said go watch Penn State versus Rutgers and see how Ace played, and I said, well, I said that. I should go back and rewatch it and make sure I'm thinking of the right game. And I was thinking of the right game, and maybe it's a little less, like, crazy, like running off of screen threes than I remember. But it's still like, man, the shots he takes and his dunks, he's pretty impressive. Like, maybe the league is just cut out for him. And by the way, we should mention in his weekly news, he did have his jersey retired by his high school.
Yes, which is awesome.
And he was very excited about it. I think that's what's funny about Ace again. It's like, he's really into this. Like, he really likes this. He wants this to matter. He wants to matter. He wants to be successful, and I think that's a real positive for him. So maybe he gets to the NBA and he did the Jade McDaniels thing of like, well, that last stop was just a distraction before I reach my goal, and then once I'm there, I'm all bought in, and it really suits my game, and the league opens up, but the game opens up quite a bit, and I can attack the rim, and that all helps, and I'm a good shooter. So it fits together. But if I just had to bet, Cooper, I think, is definitely going to be one of the top two, and then somebody else.
Yes.
There's a lot of other names that could jump into that conversation.
I will say, of maybe anyone in the lottery, definitely more so than Cooper Flagg and Dylan Harper, I think Ace Bailey has the loosest leash of any of the rookies.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, Dylan Harper's on the Spurs. The Spurs, I imagine, are trying to be a top 10 seed.
Yeah.
The Mavericks are aiming to be probably a top 6 playoff seed.
There are two players on the Spurs roster that are better at doing what Dylan Harper does than Dylan Harper does.
Exactly.
And that's not the case with Ace Bailey and the Jazz.
So I think that really benefits him, and I think that the smart thing is betting on the field, and I do think Cooper will be 1 or 2.
Yeah.
But I honestly would take the over because of that. I could see him being one of those top 2 spots for Rookie of the Year this year.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about it, VJ Edgecombe, we know, is not going to play a whole lot just because Philly wants to be good, and they also have some guards at his spot that are really good. I think Trey Johnson could play well early because I think he's going to score a lot because that Washington team really needs scoring. So I think he could score a lot. That's where maybe I would keep an eye out. I don't think Con Knipple's going to have like a huge rookie season stats-wise, though I think he's going to be a really good player. So I guess, that's where it gets interesting is Ace is going to have every opportunity to climb the ladder. I'm just playing the odds of saying somebody else will probably jump up there and maybe Walt Clayton. Yeah. Because Walt, honestly, maybe the Jazz's starting point guard, as we've talked about a lot. He might start by the end of the year, which means he could finish that high. Yeah.
And Rookie of the Year, if you think about it, is the only major award that doesn't have any, the how much you win doesn't weigh into it at all. It's really just like a stats. Like, who has the best stats in as a first-year player.
And that usually comes down to who's playing.
Yes.
Just if you're playing or you're not playing. So, that's the big story there.
Okay, last one, and the biggest one. Over under 19.5 wins for the Jazz. Over.
Yeah, I think 22 has been my number really solidly. I've been right there at 22, 23 for the Jazz. I think that makes sense. That's 5 more than last year. Again, the Jazz were bad last year, and they were purposely bad. How many more wins were out there? Maybe 10, but that was with John Collins and Colin Sexton, and now I think you lose some of those.
I remember you saying that, and I was thinking about setting my line at the 21 range, somewhere around there, but then I remembered we were looking at the Jazz schedule last week, and we couldn't find a single 5-game stretch where we were like, the Jazz could win 3 of those games.
Right.
So that's what made me put it a little bit lower, but I also agree with you. I think the Jazz do break 20 this year. With that said, that still is a bottom 5 record in the NBA.
Yeah, and certainly probably bottom 3.
Yeah.
I still don't think, even though this is a good draft and teams aren't going to be good, I just don't think that many teams can pull the plug. And unfortunately, one of the teams that could pull the plug is New Orleans, and they traded away their draft pick, so there's no reason to do that. And you just get in some weird spots like that.
Yes.
So, I think the Jazz are going to be 5 wins better and maybe 1 spot or 2 spots worse in the lottery.
All right, I think that's it.
All right, that's it for the over-unders. When we come back, we'll get to your mailbag questions. Stick around. More Jazz Notes coming up next. Welcome back to the Jazz Notes podcast. All right, let's get to the mailbag segment. We always like to wrap up the show with this. You can find me on Twitter or Blue Sky at Ben's Hoops. Same with Chandler at C Holt Sports, or read us at KSLSports.com. You can DM me if you want to, but I usually send out a prompt on Mondays around 11 o'clock. Asking for your questions. You can respond there. We will start with Dan, USU the Right Blue. He's got 3 questions, so we'll burn through these. We didn't get a ton of questions. We had a couple of people ask several, including one person who asked 6 on Blue Sky, so we will get to those as well. So we might have a long segment here. Dan asks, how am I going to watch every Jazz game and pass all my master's classes? Flex from Dan, being a master's student. Luckily, they are all online and flexible, but any tips on how to make time to watch this team? He then asks, so I'll just combine these into 2, is SEG Plus or Jazz Plus going to have little deals this year that will make it worth it, or is an antenna a better deal? Well, antenna means all the games are free. You could probably go to the DI or Salvation Army or whatever the Goodwill store, and you could probably buy 4 or 5 digital antennas for a total of $20 and figure out which one works the best.
Yep.
So that's going to be your best option. But if you're trying to have them work around your master's classes, even if they are online, having SEG Plus is nice because you can go back and watch the games a couple of hours after they're concluded.
I just had an idea pop into my head.
Okay.
Turn watching Jazz games into like a drinking game, but instead of drinking, you do homework.
That's a horrible idea.
Any Isaiah Collier turnover, you write a paragraph.
That's what I did with Pistons games when I was in high school, and I did a terrible job. So, in your sense, if you are busy, probably SEG Plus.
Yes.
As far as the best deal goes, I mean, what could the Jazz possibly give you? They did the hats and they did some black and yellow jersey giveaways and stuff like that, or sweatshirts or T-shirts or whatever. I don't imagine they'll do that this year because I think some of the gear is going to be in demand because the new jerseys are coming out and people like them. And what is it, $150 or something for the SEG Plus renewal? I think that's for both. I think that's for Mammoth and the Jazz. So antenna's going to be cheaper. And it's amazing it's on an antenna still.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people who can't watch games, and ESPN. I'm having to figure it out for the college football season. It's like it's just going to be $40 a month, or you're going to do Fubo TV. It's $80 a month, and same with YouTube TV. So if you just want to do the Jazz, you can buy a digital antenna and watch all the Jazz games for free the rest of the way, which is a great deal. You can't really beat that. And then finally, Dan asks, a quick reminder, when's Media Day and what are you most excited to find out with this year's team? We don't know exactly when Media Day is, but it's probably like a month from now. Mm-hmm. It's just usually towards the end of September. The weird thing is it's just all the familiar faces are gone. Like, it'll be the first year I've covered this team in a long time that Jordan Clarkson's not there.
Yep.
So, we'll see what some of those guys do. I'm curious who kind of breaks out. Again, Taylor was such a breakout last year. He was such a different player. I wonder if maybe Cody comes out of his shell a little bit more. He was so good in Vegas this year, at least the last couple of games. Does Cody come back with, a different size and maybe a little bit bigger? I would say bigger personality, I should say.
I would say my favorite thing for me today is talking to the young players and specifically the rookies.
Yeah.
Like, I remember asking Conte George, like, what game are you excited to play? Mm-hmm. What arena are you excited to visit? Stuff like that.
Russell Westbrook. They all say Russell Westbrook. A bunch of them will say Paul George. So we'll see. I bet Ace will say maybe Giannis now because he's been in the Nike ad with Giannis and met him and kind of said he had more for him, which is dangerous to say, but I like Ace's confidence. All right, John asked 3 questions as well on my DMs. He says, just John Ebenezer, says, is it fair to break down the Sexton trade from a Jazz perspective as effectively waiving Colin for nothing, which they could have done without the trade, and then trading a second rounder for Nurkic? Would this then imply that the Jazz brass view Nurkic as a positive asset? I don't think so. I don't think the Jazz view him as a positive asset. I do think you're seeing right now 2 guards have basically no value in the NBA, right? They're just getting, like, Norman Powell was given away. They got him for, the Heat got him for Kevin Love, Kyle Anderson, and a second-round pick. Now, those went to the Jazz, but, like, they got John Collins back. Like, that was a good trade for them. Mm-hmm. But, I guess a bad sense of the fact that Norman Powell was a really good player last year.
Borderline all-star.
But the Heat got him for nothing.
Yeah.
It was a giveaway. Collins a really good player. They got him for Yusuf Nurkic, and they got a second-round pick. So, you had to buy out Bradley Beal to move off him. Now, he was making $1 trillion, but, like, man, 2 guards just don't have a lot of value.
Yes.
So I don't think the Jazz viewed it necessarily as Nurkic having a positive asset, but I think the Jazz just realized, like, man, Colin deserves to play, and that's a burden, and now that's the Hornets' burden, and so we probably got to give them something so they take on that burden. And by the way, that's probably good for the Jazz because Colin might accidentally win you a few games, and that's one of the teams the Jazz are competing with for one of the worst records in the NBA. Like, I honestly think that's probably the justification. Yeah. Not that Nurkic comes in and is a good player or even has trade value. He could as an expiring contract, but again, as we've said over and over, Austin Ainge kind of said in his introductory press conference that salary cap space is worth more than an expiring deal in today's NBA. So I just think that was the burden of having to play a guy going into a contract year is where the value for Colin came from.
Taking it further, I feel like there's no value right now for just even like plus starters. Like that sort of archetype that I feel like Colin Sexton and John Collins fit into well. Like, I feel like teams would rather throw 4 first-round picks at a star than 1 first-round pick at a plus starter.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah.
I think you got to be like a really, really high-level Desmond Bain starter who's like the perfect fit.
Yeah.
And under a long-term contract. But yeah, 2 guard who scores 20 points a game on an expiring deal is like, it's worthless.
Yeah.
Norman Powell, Colin Sexton, Bradley Beal, like, it's just really a bad spot to be in.
Yeah.
So, no, I unfortunately, no, I just don't think the Jazz viewed that as a win-win opportunity at all. I think it was a lose-lose situation. You lost a pick and you got the worst of the trade.
Yeah.
But Colin deserves to play, and you had just painted yourself in a corner, not being able to give him that opportunity. All right, John then asks, what's the relationship like between the Jazz beat reporters? Is it competitive given you work for different outlets? Do you all have similar sources or very different ones? Do you try to outscoop each other, or is it more collegiate? Is Andy Larson the only Jazz fan among you? I don't know if Andy's a Jazz fan. I I mean, he writes for the team, right?
Yeah.
Like, I promise you, it's really easy to get rid of any fandom you have when you're covering it this closely. So, no, I don't think Andy's a Jazz fan unless he said that somewhere. But no, I don't think that's how I know Andy. I've never seen Andy be like, the Jazz lost. So, what's the relationship like between us? Very good. We all like each other. You spend a lot of time together. I don't travel. Sarah and Andy travel the most, so those two are probably the closest. And but 3 weeks ago, we all had dinner at another writer's house who's the AP writer, Matt Coles. And John Kuhn was there, who's the other AP writer. So, that was it. And Tony was just out of town, so Tony wasn't there, but Ryan Miller was there. So, and then we all, sat at the table and talked, and we spend a lot of time together. We eat dinner before every game. That we're all there. We all sit and eat dinner together. So there is competitiveness. We all want to do well, and we all want to get different stories, and we all have different sources for sure. I'm sure there is overlap somewhere because there's only finite people who have information. But yeah, you have to build different relationships and things like that. So that's where it is different. But I mean, I've done a radio show with Andy. It used to be the Salt City Hoop Show. I did a podcast with Sarah. My very first radio show ever was with Tony Jones. Ryan Miller's the only one I haven't done a show with, and he works in this building. So, no, I like all of those people. In fact, I'm hanging out with them tonight for a different thing. So I do like all those people quite a bit. And yeah, you're always trying to get something first or get a scoop or whatever, but it's not. Those guys doing well is good for us. Everyone doing good is good for everybody. It's a weird thing like that. And look, sometimes we have to have each other's back. Sometimes if we feel hey, we're not getting access that we think we're supposed to have, or we don't feel like we're able to tell a story that we want to tell for whatever reason, we have to go in together. We have to go and fight for each other and together. So that type of stuff is it's almost like a union. You kind of have to have each other's back, even though we're certainly not in a union together. Yeah. So, no, I consider all those people my friends. So, and you just spend so much time together. Yes. You know what I mean? It's like people you work with, definitely, and our lives have changed. So I started the first year with Andy. Andy and I both came up at the very same time through Spencer Ryan Hall, who ran Salt City Hoops. I think he started it. So we've just all worked together a ton. You know what I mean? So, but I didn't have kids at that point. Now I have 2 kids. Yeah. And Sarah's getting married. I think that's public information. And Andy's traveling all summer, and Ryan's working on his house, and Tony's got his thing going on. So yeah, there's just a lot. Yeah. But everyone's cool. Yeah. Oh, and a third one now from John Ebenezer. Sorry, his last question says, is there a time period or criteria where stories that you probably can't tell at a time due to the human factor's potential damage are then free to be told? For example, the publicly available knowledge regarding the dysfunction between the 2021 Jazz, details between Gordon Hayward's free agency, Darren and Jerry Sloan's feud, that probably not as complete a knowledge amongst the beat writers. Will we ever know? Yes, things do come out later. Some of that's because the sources close to it are more comfortable talking about it after the fact. I can tell you that I had people specifically who would know tell me that Donovan said he asked for a trade, even though Donovan has publicly said he did not ask for a trade. Yeah. I've had people say Donovan, whether it was direct or when they said, hey, what do you want to do? He said, trade me, wanted to be traded. And I don't think that was initially reported at first. So that does absolutely happen. You get a little bit further away from the situation and people will elaborate. Or if a player, John Smith, played for the Jazz, hypothetical, and hated Danny Ainge, and I had heard that, certainly I can report it. I can report that. But also, there's relationships you have to keep with Danny Ainge and John Smith or whatever. You know what I mean? And I will tell you, I've not heard that at all. Everyone likes Danny, and Danny likes everybody, I think. So some of those stories you get further on down the line after the fact. I certainly don't really consider myself sitting on stories at the time. You know what I mean? Yeah. Certainly nothing that I think is pressing or important. And sometimes they just become funny anecdotes down the line. Yeah. More so than I sat on something. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, that it definitely happens because people get more comfortable talking later. Yes. But I generally will tell you what I hear when I hear it.
And it's sort of a balance, for example, with the Donovan Mitchell thing. You might as well just hold that until he does get traded, and then that's the story, instead of reporting that and then potentially ruining your relationships. And then what if he asks to get traded and then doesn't get traded, and then it's everyone knows it kind of thing.
There really is so much of it is by feel.
Yes.
That's one thing I guess I would try and relay is there are things that you know right away and they never learn more of and you forget about. And then there are things that, like, you keep hearing down the line and down the line and down the line. And, like, I'll give you an example of this. Gordon Hayward was painted as, like, perfect Jazz man, wants to be in Utah, etc. Even after the things, like, great guy. He signs his contract. He, like, stops going to the hospital to visit the kids. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, immediately closed in. And you didn't hear that because the Jazz were trying to paint him a certain way. And, like, it wasn't even easy to see that type of stuff. But then you hear later down the line that, like, oh, yeah, he didn't want to be involved in any community stuff after he got paid his first max contract. It's like, so that's the type of stuff you do start to hear a little bit more of that I didn't know of at the time. I just didn't. Some of that stuff they keep private, but that is something I heard. So.
Any more DM or Blue Sky?
Yeah, lots more. Okay. Blue Sky. Sorry, let me go over here really quick. Sammy Paradise. I remember the Jazz got draft rights to a European when they traded Simone Fontecchio. Is there any news about him, or is he the new Ante Tomic? That's his Gabriel Procida.
Yes.
He plays for Italy. Well, actually, he plays now for Real Madrid.
Okay.
He played for Alba Berlin last year, and was not very good. But going from Alba Berlin to Real Madrid is like, going from, it's the same league, but it's like going from the Wizards to the Rockets, the Wizards to the Thunder, and being like, you signed him to a real contract? Like, you were a bad player on the Wizards, and then the Thunder were like, we're going to give you a lot of money.
Yeah.
Like, why? So, clearly there's some expectation that he's a good player. He's only 23 years old still. Kind of more of a, like, athletic 3-and-D guy, but not a three-point shooter, so I just kind of like an athletic wing, kind of. Like, I almost want to say Christian Brown, but Christian Brown can shoot a little bit. So I don't know exactly what his comp is, other than I remember talking to people at the Jazz, and they were, like, excited that, like, he got more steals and he had turnovers. So, like, he kind of had he was a positive possession guy.
Yeah.
But his three-point shooting is kind of the key, and he's not become a good three-point shooter.
Yeah.
But he did get signed by Real Madrid, which is a good sign that maybe he still has some potential, and he does have outs after or beginning next summer. So he'll play his first year with Real Madrid this year. Next year he has an out, and then he has a year out after that, and then he'll just be a free agent. So if the Jazz want to bring him over, they can.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just looking at this really quick. Oh, never mind. I was going to say he's like Bruce Brown, but Bruce Brown shot 40% from 3 1 year. So.
Yeah, and I don't think he's that level of defensive player. You know what I mean? So I think that's the issue there. Alex from PGH. But yeah, that's what we've heard on Gabriel Procida. He did visit over the offseason, but obviously didn't play in the summer league. Alex from PGH. Can you give us a recap of where we stand with the Rudy and Donovan trades? As far as assets go, Jazz, have turned the latter of the picks, including this year's pick. They didn't end up with an extra first this year. They traded that away already to Phoenix, who promptly traded it to get off of Yusuf Nurkic, which is funny because Yusuf then comes back to the Jazz. But the Jazz have the 2030, 2031, I'd have to look at the asset tracker, unprotected Suns pick, which that ended up being another unprotected first, and it's kind of viewed, other than the Pelicans pick next year, which belongs to the Hawks, which we were just talking about how terrible this trade was, probably one of the 2 or 3 best assets in all of the NBA.
Mm-hmm.
Suns are probably not going to be good in 2030. They don't control any of their draft rights, so even if they want to tank and trade away Devin Booker to get a bunch of stuff, it's like they can't be bad because they don't own their own picks, so there's no reason to be bad. So in that sense, you're like, well, then why would the Jazz pick from them be valuable in 2030? They just can't really improve either is the problem. Like, you're betting on some weird improvement from weird guys that don't generally push you over the top. So it's probably just going to kind of steadily get worse and worse and worse, and you're hoping you get a top 10 pick out of that. So there's still value there. Do any of the players other than Walker Kessler remain on the Jazz from the Rudy trade? I don't think so. And even the guys that they traded for pieces have since moved on.
Yep.
The 2027 Lakers pick that is top 4 protected is still a residual of that trade because it was for Mike Conley. So that's still that hasn't been relayed yet. There is still a trade swaps from either the Cavs or the Timberwolves, but it's only one now instead of having the right to swap with both of them, because one of them has to go to the Suns in that 3-for-1 deal. But, I mean, Walker's a starting center. It's pretty spectacular. Like, he's not as good as Rudy Gobert was in his prime. So I guess maybe you're at a loss there, but you've still got these big assets coming in, so we'll see. That's not a great trade, but it's not like an F. Donovan Mitchell, you got Lauri Markkanen back, and we still haven't seen what that is going to turn into. You didn't get anything for Colin, so I guess that's an L. but you still have one of the picks that you haven't, actually two of the picks, again, that one of them will be Minnesota, one of them will be your own, plus a pick that's owed to you. It's like, we're still early, as weird as that sounds. It's like, we got to see how good Keontae George ends up being. We got to see how good Isaiah Collier is. Isaiah Collier was a result of the Ochai and Kelly Olynyk trade. So all of those are just weird pieces. You know what I mean? It's just like they're pretty diluted now as far as like what's still around and what's been a part of other trades. But I wouldn't say the Jazz have clearly lost anything. But there isn't like the obvious, oh my gosh, I can't believe the Jazz won this. Like, let me ask you, who do you think has gotten the better of the trade, Minnesota or Cleveland, from those two players? Not from the Jazz perspective, but like, who do you think has done better since those trades, Minnesota or Cleveland?
Probably Cleveland.
Probably, and they've only got to the second round.
Yeah.
And Minnesota's made back-to-back conference finals.
But that's, so like team success, but that's like who had a bigger impact on their team being that
Donovan's better than Rudy, I think.
Yeah.
But it only matters how far you get in the playoffs, right?
True.
Like, if you're a superstar and you get eliminated in the first round of the playoffs, you're a career loser.
Yeah.
Like, that's your identity. It's like T-Mac.
Mm-hmm.
So Donovan's doing a little bit of the T-Mac thing, and Donovan's all-NBA first team. He's a hell of a player, but Cleveland's not getting anywhere.
Yeah.
Then not anywhere that matters, but of course this year is a huge year for them because the East is wide open, and we'll see if they can make some noise there. So I hope that kind of resets it. We're just still right in the middle of it. I mean, that's the hard part when you make trades in 2022 that have picks going through 2029. We're only 2025. We're literally halfway through.
Yeah.
Some of them we're going to get even more of, so it's a ways out on that. All right, Louis asked a bunch of questions.
Okay.
Or Lou JY 1999 asked a bunch of questions. And I'll just kind of phase through some of these. Not all of them are important. Okay. So with all due respect. He says, I remember hearing John Stockton was working with some of the young guards previously. He did it with Darren Williams. I think Trey Burke as well. He said, I remember Derek Favors and Enes Kanter worked with other big men to refine their game. We have a roster of very young players. Who would you like to see them work with, and what skills should they gain? I don't really actually believe that much in players working with other former players.
Yeah.
Not certainly as much as people think. Like, do you remember how many people have worked with Hakeem Olajuwon and none of them can do the shimmies? No one has the dream shake. It's like, yeah, it's really hard to learn that stuff. Like, so you kind of either have it or you don't. Dwight Howard worked with them every offseason for a while. It was just like, it didn't matter.
Yeah.
So I don't buy some of that stuff. I think it's more specific skill sets. Like, in all honesty, you know what the biggest skill set the Jazz could learn, or a single Jazz player could learn this year? It's Walker Kessler making free throws.
Yeah.
That's the best thing you can learn. And it's like, well, he doesn't need to go work with Jeff Hornacek on how to make free throws. Like, yeah, Jeff shot 95% or whatever it was, or Kyle Korver's a great free throw shooter. It's like, you just got to figure out your thing.
Yeah.
You got to figure out whatever your thing is that makes you passable, and then do that.
Yep.
And the weird thing is, it's like, maybe you need to not work with the best free throw shooter. Go work with another bad free throw shooter who got a little better, and that's Rudy Gobert. Rudy was horrible at free throw shooting when he got into the league, and then got a little bit better, and it's allowed him to stay on the court in fourth quarters. You can't hack Rudy and get him off the floor.
Yeah.
So maybe that. Louis then asks, has Ace been in Utah working with any one teammates? He's in Atlanta working with Isaiah and Walker. They're all Georgia kids, and I'm sure Walker knows the Georgia place because he's been there longer.
Yep.
And then Isaiah teamed up with Walker, and then Ace came there. I think that's actually really cool.
Yes.
I think those are three pieces who have a chance to be a part of the core. So those guys working together is important and could be beneficial going forward. Lou asks, if you had a choice between Hendricks or Kyle Filipowski to start, considering their lineup, who do you got? I think conceivably, at their peak, Taylor.
Yes, I agree. Like, if he's coming into the season healthy.
But I think it's going to be Flip because he's healthy, and he's had the best summer so far.
Yep.
Cody had a great summer league too, I thought, and I thought Ace's one of his 2 games was good. Same with Walt Clayton, but Flip was the summer league MVP. I expect him to step in and play very well. And then finally, Lou says, is there anything that the young guys are working on that we can be excited about? I think they're working on what they're... I mean, the weird thing is that they work on what they're good at.
Yeah.
As much as I think we sometimes say, like, oh, what are they bad at and how are they going to fix that, a la Walker Kessler's three-point shooting or Isaiah Collier's three-point shooting. It's like, well, what are your strengths? What, as Will Hardy likes to say, what's your fastball? Yeah. And then how do you turn your fastball from a 95 to a 98? Yeah. How does that become your star thing? So I think that's what I would keep an eye on, is actually, what are these guys good at that becomes an identity? So it's like, it's Bryce Sensabaugh's 45% three-point shooting over the second half of the season, staying as a 45% three-point shooter now for the whole season. That's what I'd be focused on more so than, like, did Bryce turn into Bruce Brown or Bruce Bowen? You know what I mean? At his prime. So that's what I would kind of keep an eye on there.
Yeah.
Sorry to have a non-answer, but it's kind of more of how it works.
Yeah, I would say you would hope that Isaiah Collier came in as a better shooter because that's how he stays on the floor. But
his best thing is probably like, I don't turn the ball over ever now.
Yeah.
And now I'm 8 assists and 1 turnover as opposed to 8 and 4 or
Yeah.
8 assists and 2 turnovers. And that's the difference between me being an NBA player and not being an NBA player.
yes.
Stuff like that. All right, that's it for me. What do we
Okay.
have on Twitter?
Yes, over to X now. First up from Todd Crow. Can you guys compare on paper this year's team to the 40 and 42 2016 Jazz team and how next year's team compares to the 5th seeded 2017 team? There were some pretty bad teams in the West then, in all fairness. I brought up the rosters.
Okay.
The 15-16 Jazz roster, you had Trevor Booker, Trey Burke, Alec Burks, Dante Exum, Derek Favors, Rudy Gobert, Gordon Hayward, Rodney Hood, Joe Ingles, and then you had Trey Lyles, rookie that year.
The 2015-2016 season is one of the most disappointing in recent Jazz memory. The year before that, I think they were like 37 wins, but they finished the second half of the season on a tear. Dante Exum, it's his rookie season. This is 2014-2015.
Yep.
I think it's Rudy's rookie season as well.
Yeah.
No, Rudy was in the Trey Burke draft. So maybe it was Rudy's third year.
Okay.
Whatever it was. That was Rudy's second year. So this was 2014-2015 would have been Rudy's second year. So Quinn Snyder takes over. They fire Ty Corbin, and they are awful to start the first half of the season. In the second half of the season, they go on a tear. And Dante starts all 41 games over the second half of the season, and Rudy Gobert starts to look like a real NBA player. Ty Corbin wouldn't play him at all as a rookie. Derek Favors is good. Gordon Hayward's up at almost 20 points a game. And as we mentioned earlier, the summer of 2015, Dante is playing for Team Australia in some overseas international thing and tears up his knee. He tears his ACL, I think. And so the Jazz come back in 2015-2016 without the starting point guard over the second half of the year. They have to go back to Trey Burke. He's not good. And as a result, they finish with 40 wins. They lose a game late in the season, I think. I can probably pull this up, see if I can pull up their game log. Do you have it? I can pull up their schedule.
Yeah.
They lose to Dallas in like the last week of the season because fans are booing Darren Williams towards the end of his career, and Darren goes bonkers and kills the Jazz. It's the second to last game of the season here in Salt Lake City. They're booing Darren Williams for a chance to, I think, guarantee themselves 41 wins, and it would have kept their playoff hopes alive.
Yeah, because they finished 9th in the conference.
Darren goes for 23-6-4 by the time Darren was like 14-4-4 guy. He just has a big performance, has a great game. And the Jazz lose. There's a funny post-game interaction here, too, with a media member who says, ask Quinn Snyder, is it unfathomable to lose this game? And Quinn just about committed murder. It's like, unfathomable? No, Dirk Nowitzki's a Hall of Famer. He's on the other side. Darren Williams is a multi-time All-Star. He's on the other side of the floor. Like, you could go back and look at that Mavericks roster. He's like, no, that team won the finals 3 years ago. It's not unfathomable that we lost this game. But Quinn was quite upset, A, that they lost, and B, that he was asked that question. Because the Jazz just kind of fell apart late. They lost 4 of 5 down the stretch, including a game that was more, quote-unquote, unfathomable. They lost to the Clippers April 8th, 2016. I remember this game because Blake Griffin didn't play, DeAndre Jordan didn't play, Chris Paul didn't play, J.J. Redick didn't play. That was the Lob City Clippers. They're resting everybody to get to the playoffs healthy. The Jazz just are handed a win, a free win, and every single one of them mattered. Again, as you mentioned, they lose that game in overtime, 102-99. Then 2 games later, they lose to Dallas. So that's, again, this is 2015, 2016 we're talking about. That was just expected to be a really good season. So how is this year different than 2015, 2016? The Jazz are not expected to be good.
Yes.
Yeah, the Jazz are expected to win half as many games as this. So there's a lot of young players, but that team went into the season expecting to make the playoffs. This Jazz team's expecting to win 4 more games than 17 last year. And
on top of expectations, looking at the 16-17 roster, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 guys born in 91 or earlier. So that's all like 25, 26 and older guys. Yeah. It's like a more experienced, more veterans in their locker room.
2017, the Jazz do make the playoffs.
Yes.
And they beat the Clippers in the first round.
Yeah.
And it's Gordon Hayward's last year in Utah. But, yeah, they'd gone out and they'd traded for George Hill. Like, they had really tried to beef up that roster specifically to do what they did, and they did it.
Yeah.
So that was a team that was expected to be good, was good, exceeded expectations at the playoffs because they upset the Clippers.
Yep.
And then got trounced by the Warriors.
Yeah.
And then Gordon leaves and shocks everybody, and Donovan Mitchell comes in. So.
Next question from J. Brandon Olson. How many more losing seasons in a row would it take for fans to turn on Ryan Smith?
I don't know. Turning on the owner would be a little bit weird in Jazz history.
Yeah.
It's possible. I think you always have a target on your back. I think Ryan kind of naturally has a target on his back by trying to do something as ambitious as he's doing, which is tank to help rebuild this roster. And he's been very aggressive with it and been willing to take on losses that the Millers were never willing to take on to have a higher ceiling with a longer-term view. Yeah. Ryan is willing to look further down the road than the Millers were as far as winning versus the Millers, who I kind of thought were just keep it afloat. Just keep it up winning all the time because there's a chance you get to the playoffs and you make playoffs. You can actually have net financial gain year to year. And I suspect Ryan's not making I would bet Ryan's not in the black with the Jazz as far as actual money in his pocket year after year.
Yeah.
Where Larry H. Miller was very notorious as saying, if we make the playoffs, I make money because we get the gate and, I get extra money that way. I would suspect with, losing the regional sports networks that they've lost and putting it on antenna TV, you lose a lot of money that way.
Yeah.
So I bet Ryan year to year is losing money on the Jazz. Now their value has doubled, so he's more than made up for it if you wanted to sell the team, but until you sell the team, you don't necessarily get that money back. But I don't know. What I don't think the Jazz fans are going to do is turn their backs on the Jazz.
Yeah.
Now, the casual fans, like my dentist, shout out to my dentist, he's like, yeah, they're not good right now, so I still have season tickets, I just don't go to as many games. You're still buying season tickets? Great. Me going to the game and 18 of the 19,000 seats being sold is great for my job, right? That creates job security for me. So I'm thrilled about it. But that's the funny thing is that's how a lot of people work. They're like, well, not as good this year. I'll give away more of my season tickets than I keep. And then when they're competitive again, I'll just keep going.
Yeah.
So I think I see a lot of that and I hear a lot of that. So what I don't think is fans are going to turn their back on the Jazz. It's funny. I look around and we had a question about being competitive. It's what's funny is there's competition between the writers at KSLSports.com. Whose story did well this week or this month or who had the top story or whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's what I will say is Jazz fans have persevered.
Yes.
That's what I will say. And that's not, BYU goes to the Big 12. Utah goes to the Big 12. They have 5-star players. They have 4-star players. What we know is that consistently Jazz fans show up. They ask 20 questions in podcasts in August, coming off of a 17-win season.
Yeah.
And God bless you, because you're paying for my ability to be alive. And I really, really appreciate it. So that's great. I don't think Jazz fans are going anywhere. Thus, I'm not sure the opinion on Ryan Smith really matters all that much. I'm not trying to dodge the question. There are owners that win championships that fans don't like. I think that's the hard part. I think owners just put targets on their backs in general by owning a team.
Yes.
That's natural.
Okay.
It's like coaches. People hate coaches too. Even coaches win championships and people are like,
yeah,
bozo, moron. I don't know. He just won. He's pretty good. So I don't think you can win as an owner. Is actually just what I think is happening.
Yeah. I messed up my very easy job of asking all questions last week, so I'm going to go back to Jazz Time Jones. He said, if Jazz get a top 3 pick next year, how many years before they are a playoff team excluding the play-in?
And you know what the good news is? I wrote about this last week. This was the story. This is the question I wrote about. How many years? Look, the weird thing is you look at Detroit and you look at Houston. These are the 2 teams I wrote about. Awful. Add players. Within 2 years, they were back in the playoffs, both of them. The Rockets went out and got Fred VanVleet and Dylan Brooks. And then were competitive for the playoffs their first year, but didn't get the playoffs. And then last year, they were last year, they were 6, and they lost to the 4, but they were really good.
Yep.
The Rockets were the 2 last year. I'm mixing up the Rockets and the Pistons, excuse me. They go out and get Fred VanVleet and Dylan Brooks 2 years ago. First year, they barely missed the playoffs. They're close to the play, and they don't quite make it. Second year, they had the 2nd seed in the West last year. Now, the West was fluky. It was weird at the top, but still, they were the 2nd seed. They were good.
Yeah.
That was a good team last year. And they had some young pieces. But what's interesting about the Rockets is they don't have a superstar young piece. Alperen Sengun's good, but he's not I don't know who's the best young player in the NBA right now. Victor Wembanyama.
Yeah.
He's not Anthony Edwards good. He's good. He's just not that level of good. And they like Amen Thompson again, and like there's some real intrigue with Amen Thompson, but he's not yet a superstar.
Yeah.
So those guys within 2 years, I mean, they had top 5 picks and then went out and got those guys and they jumped up. And like even the guy who they thought was going to be a superstar, 2 of them, Jalen Green, is not on the team anymore. And Jabari Smith Jr., the 3rd overall pick, he's okay. He's a starter, but he's not a great player. So you could get out of that quickly. And then on the flip side, Detroit does have a superstar, I think, in Cade.
Yes.
But 2 years ago, they were coming off of a 14-win season.
Yeah. Lost like 26 in a row or something.
Yeah. They add Tobias Harris. They add Malik Beasley. They add Paul Reed. I'm sure I'm missing somebody else like random in there, but like Tim Hardaway Jr.
Yeah.
And then Cade kind of comes into his own. Even though I think Cade was always good, he just needed veteran players around him to play better. It's like Asar Thompson's an okay player, and like they've got some okay dudes. Jalen Duren's good. He's not great. What I think is really interesting about that is like, who are the veterans I mentioned? Fred VanVleet, Dylan Brooks, Tobias Harris, Tim Hardaway Jr. Like those guys would all sign in Utah.
Yeah.
You know, like on none of the, especially if you're willing to overpay, which the Rockets overpaid both of those guys to come to Houston. And Detroit, just like Tobias Harris, you can always have Tobias Harris. He's free. You can have Tobias. So like, I honestly think like, let's say this season, the Jazz go for 25 wins.
Yeah.
22 wins like we've talked about. Get one more top 5 pick. If next year Austin Ainge and Danny Ainge and Justin Zanuck say like, hey, let's go sign 3 free agents that are just like veterans that are okay. Like starters, definitely like top 250 guys in the NBA, but not top 10 guys in the NBA.
Yeah.
I think the Jazz could exit the rebuild like Thanos, flipping his, snapping his fingers. Like, I think you can really do it quickly in the NBA anymore.
And I think this ties well into his question on this week's prompt. He said, if the Jazz fell in the out of the top 5 in the 2026 draft, how much of a setback is that? Losing this year's pick hurt a lot, but you still ended up with like what everyone thought was a top 3 guy.
Yeah.
But still it hurt because you thought you were ending up with not him.
Yeah.
Anywho, say the Jazz get one of those top 3-headed monster, all could be a number 1 pick in a different draft kind of guys. Then you sort of have like tiers of, okay, we have Ace Bailey and our 2026 guy, and then we have Keontae, Flip, Bryce. Then it's like you have all these pieces. You could add veterans. You could ship out 1 or 2 of the young guys to get an upgrade here, and then it's like really, like you said, snap of a fingers, you could be out of it.
Yeah, really quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just throw out Cam Boozer.
Yeah.
You have Cam Boozer and Ace Bailey and Walker, one of the other young guys. Let's just say like they pick the best of the rest of the young guys.
Yeah.
You can keep Lowry if you want, or you can just go out and get other players. And like, I think you could get to 7 in the West.
Yeah,
like overnight, pretty easily. Like you could be better than Portland, like that.
Yeah,
like really quickly. And Portland's going to finish 9th in the West this year. I think you could be better than Phoenix really, really quickly. Like again, the reason this has changed, and it's where like we got to catch up with the NBA, is that it's not a big 3 league anymore.
Yeah.
Meaning you don't go out and get Ray Allen and Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett. You have who are the worst 3 guys in your rotation.
Yeah.
If they're good, you're good. And good means Tari Eason.
Yeah.
You know, like it's not superstar. But like I truly believe like if you're at a point where Bryce Sensabaugh is legitimately the 8th best player in your rotation, or Kyle Filipowski is the 8th best player in your rotation, you're probably good. You're probably, good enough to make the playoffs.
Yes.
Like those guys can step in and do some things and work well. The problem is if those guys are your 4th best guy in your rotation or your 5th best guy in your rotation, which I think you probably have an argument for both Bryce and Kyle Filipowski by the end of the season, that's when you're really in trouble.
Like, do the Indiana Pacers have a single top 15 guy?
Tyrese is right there.
Is there? But even then, like, he'll have games where he has 9 and 8. You know what I mean?
Yeah, pretty consistently.
And then, but the thing with the Pacers is I don't think any of their top 10 is not in the top 150 in the NBA.
Yeah.
So that's you're right. That's really what it comes down to.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I think you're right. But I think you can get out of it really quickly,
Yeah.
is the truth. And I think that's probably the model the Jazz will take. I think at some point they're just going to spend a bunch of money and get a couple of guys to come in and plug the holes and then see if any of the young players continue to grow inside of that,
Yes.
a la Cade Cunningham last year with the Pistons.
Let's address this one a little bit better, though. How much of a setback would it be to fall out of the top 5? in the upcoming draft.
Less of a setback than it was this year.
Yes, I agree.
Like falling to 6 next year, even though, again, you ended up with Ace Bailey. It's why it's so hard to answer these questions. Like, we think we know who the top 3 are next year. But again, at this point last year, we would have told you the top 3 were Cooper, Ace, Dylan Harper. It didn't happen that way.
No.
So Ace fell to 5. Now, the other 2 stayed in the top 3, but people didn't think Dylan Harper was going to be better than Ace Bailey until they got to Rutgers. So it's just really hard to say. Like, if you were to tell me that randomly one of those guys, if those guys don't go top 3, will I be shocked? I will not be.
No.
Because it's a good class overall, and there's a kid, I think Nate Ament, I think is his name. It's like, if he steps in and is great, okay, then one of those guys falls. Like, AJ has a weird year. If somebody gets hurt, Darren Peterson gets hurt, doesn't play a whole lot. Yeah, it happens all the time.
Yeah.
So that wouldn't be surprising. G.G. Jackson was, the number 1 recruit in the country, fell to the 2nd round.
Yeah.
So it's just the draft at this point, what we think we know. Again, Nolan Traore was expected to be a top 5 pick, and they were like, you get a top 5 pick in this year's draft, you're awesome. Nolan Traore fell to 22.
Yeah.
It's just like, it's hard to say.
Yes. Okay, last question, and finally, we highlighted this earlier.
Yeah,
get into it finally. From Jesse. Even with the assumed Kevin Love buyout opening a roster spot, is waiving KJ Martin a foregone conclusion? Would waiving him put Jazz under the salary minimum?
I don't think it puts them under the salary minimum. You've got guys now like Kyle Anderson on the roster, George Niang now at $8 million. Like, I think you're up above it high enough now that you're not worried necessarily about the minimum.
Yeah.
So no, I don't think so. Though I could pull it up. I don't even know what the minimum is. It's like it's X percent of the max, or X percent of the cap. So, but no, I don't think the Jazz are at any risk of doing that. Again, what I had heard was no one ever told me KJ Martin's not going to be on the team next year. But kind of piecing together what I had seen, I didn't get a sense that he was going to be on the team. And I would guess that George Niang being on the roster does not make it more likely that he's on the team. I would think it probably makes that was before the George Niang trade, and it still seemed dicey that he would be here. So I think George being here and there being even less opportunity means he probably won't be.
Yeah.
So, and if that's the case, the Jazz can, I could be totally wrong. Again, I have a hard time understanding what the value of him is on the roster if they are not thinking they're going to be a guy that he's going to that he's not going to be a guy that they're going to play to develop.
Yeah.
And I don't get the sense that they're going to be like, yeah, we want to develop him. So then why just have him on the roster at all?
Yeah.
Let him try and find a spot somewhere else.
Okay, one last refresh. Make sure there's nothing added late. That's it.
Okay. Appreciate everyone sending in questions. Again, you guys have an interest in this team in August is beneficial. Next week there will be Eurobasket, so we'll talk more about that. And again, next week we will be in September, meaning I think media days before the end of the month. So we are getting back into the season relatively quickly. This will be the slowest spot. It's probably the slowest podcast we will have all year long.
Yeah.
So excited to get back into it. As always, find us on Twitter or Blue Sky at Ben's Hoops and see Holt Sports. Read us at KSLSports.com. We'll be back next week.